It's now time to take a look at the asset management sector and how it will be impacted by all the changes we see in the financial industry. On the panel will be Ms. Deborah Ho, Country Head of Singapore and Regional Head of Southeast Asia for BlackRock, Mr. Sam Kim, Managing Director, Portfolio Execution Group for GIC, Ms. Susan So, CEO Singapore and Co-Head of Asia Pacific for Schroders Investment Management Singapore, and the panel will be moderated by Mr. Ang Chai Soon, Assistant Chief Executive of the IBF. The audience is encouraged to post any questions you have for the panel in the Q&A box, and we'll address these live. Over to you, Chai Soon.
Thank you, Florence. Wait for our panel members to turn on their camera. A very good morning to all of you. My name is Chai Soon. I'm the Assistant Chief Executive of IBF, your moderator for this session. Thank you, audience, for tuning into this webinar. This is the final day of the two-day SGUnited Financial Sector Jobs and Skills Fair. I'm very happy to have three prominent industry leaders from the asset management industry who join me on this panel. They are Deborah, Susan, and Sam. Good morning to the three of you.
Morning.
So over the next 15 minutes or so, I know we overrun, so we'll try to give the session within 15 minutes. You'll hear from our panel speakers, their perspectives on how the asset management industry is responding to the challenges and opportunities ahead. Audience, you can post questions using the Q&A box. We'll try to address as many questions as possible. So while Florence has given a quick introduction to our panel speakers, I'm going to start the session by asking each panel member to give a brief introduction of yourself, your career journey, including one interesting story. So may I invite Susan to start first?
Okay, well, I am the country CEO of Schroders here in Singapore. And very recently, I have also taken on additional responsibilities as co-head of Schroders Asia Pacific business. Okay, my interesting story for everyone is that when I was given this additional role, it was really in the midst of COVID. So I couldn't really, go around the region to visit the teams that I'm responsible for and to, meet the clients that, I have accountability for. So it was a period of really, learning, challenging, overcoming challenges. And as, a lot of us realized that digital tools actually, came in very handy, that I could continue to actually engage people all over the world and around the region and also with my clients.
Thank you, Susan. In fact, a crisis creates opportunities. So you are, you're given more things to oversee. So maybe Deborah, over to you.
Thank you, Chai Soon. Hello, everybody. I think the whole lot of us are, I guess, dialing in from home. But I wanted to actually share a story. But before I do that, just to introduce myself very briefly. I'm the CEO for BlackRock Singapore. BlackRock is an investment management company headquartered in the US with an AUM of 7.4 trillion. I mean, we're based in Singapore for our Southeast Asian business, which I run. Well, I guess I was going to say my interesting story, but if you've been around as long as I have, there are a lot of stories to tell. But I'm just going to home in on the one that's most recent. And basically, it's my time at BlackRock. So I joined BlackRock 2.5 years ago. I'm not a career asset management person. I spent most of my career in banking, whether it was retail banking or sales and trading, and found myself in the asset management industry, which I wish I did a lot earlier. But the message for all of you is that it's you can transform yourself and you can morph into one field into another, a combination of opportunity as well as resolve. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Indeed, it's a good story for someone who has successfully switched from banking to an asset management industry. So last but not least, let's hear from Sam.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to be on this panel. So I am a managing director at GIC, and I look after a group called Portfolio Execution Group. We're a team that encompasses a multiple variety of functions spread across Singapore, London, and New York. Prior to joining GIC, I've been with the firm for 2 years now. I actually was at BlackRock, and so Deborah and I were colleagues for a very short amount of time. That might be the most interesting story I have to tell, but I do have something that I can add to that, which is, Chai-Soon, you talked about opportunity in the middle of crisis. For some reason, I feel like in my career, I have been in the middle of many crises. So whether it's LTCM, Asia financial crisis, Russia bond default, dot-com bubble. I was in New York for 9/11. I was in Japan for the big earthquake, and now obviously COVID. But what it does touch on is the need to be resilient. And I think, going through those crises, you learn to be resilient, and most importantly, to understand that crises and change is an opportunity. And so I think just going through all those episodes has really impressed upon me the need to change, to evolve and embrace that change.
On several crises, so I think for those of us who are in the industry for more than 20 years, you experience the ups and downs, and so usually crises will create several opportunities for even some digital tools to navigate and also to some new norms, which I think everybody is trying to adjust. So I'm sure our prominent presenters and our partners to help you navigate your career pursuit if you want to follow what Deborah has done, switch from banking to asset.
Chai-Soon, you're breaking off. Can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Yeah,
You're back.
Okay, I'm using office land. I'm in the office, so I'm worried that at home, I was some distortion. So I come back to the office. So okay, so my first discussion with the panel is the pandemic has brought severe economic challenges.
Okay, it's breaking up again.
Hold on. Three of the previous panel had addressed this, and they are from the banking and the insurance industry. So we believe the asset management industry will also have a lot of sharing to tell our audience in terms of the challenges you are trying to overcome and how digital transformation has impacted the industry. So maybe I'd like to invite the panel member to share some of the key changes that you have to deal with. And also, if there are fundamentals, if they remain, I think good to share with our audience. So, Susan, would you like to start first?
Sure. Thank you, Chai-Soon. Actually, like many industries, the asset managers are not spared by the severe impact of the COVID-19 crisis. In fact, with markets coming on very sharply in March, and our revenues are actually pegged based on the value or market value of our assets. Of course, revenues will be impacted as well. So, it's suffice to say that a lot of us are actually operating under, a lot of volatility and also, a backdrop of economic downturn and, the potential of maybe, second and third wave and escalating US and China tensions. All this are making firms, more conservative. So in fact, generally, I would say that for most of the firms, new hirings are actually frozen. Right, only in areas where the skill sets, there are gaps in skill sets. Otherwise, we're not increasing headcount for most of us. And and there's always the prospect, right? If the situation gets tougher, there may be also job cuts as well. given that at this moment, that a lot of the businesses are bolstered by, the government support schemes that were given, right? And that, when that takes off, people will really feel it. But having said that, definitely COVID-19 has accelerated the pace of digitalization amidst all the lockdown, and the need to reskill and upskill our workforce is now even more urgent and imperative. So let me share quickly, what the financial industry and the asset management sector have been doing in terms of preparing for workforce transformation. So prior to the pandemic, the government has already been working very closely with the financial sector and us, to really anticipate the trends of digitalization and evaluate its impact on jobs. On the asset management side, we have been working together with the IBF to very proactively identify the job roles that will be replaced by technology and the new skills that will be required for our business and industry in the near future. So there was a lot of help and support given by the MOM, the Workforce Singapore, and Skills Future as well. And all this, are already set in motion even before the COVID. So some of the schemes that came out from all this were the professional conversion programs, and that is really for companies to tap into to actually identify the areas of potential replacements by technology, roles that will be impacted, and really actively reskill their employees. There is also another program called the Technology in Finance Immersion Program, which we call TIFIT for short. And that's aimed at building a pipeline of capabilities in the key tech areas that our industry will need. And for participants in that program, they are actually given industry curated training, as well as attachments at leading financial institutions. So that's really also on the job training as well. So I think all of us know very recently during the COVID period, the government has announced 2 additional programs, and that is the SGUnited traineeship program and the SGUnited mid-career pathway programs. So firms are strongly encouraged to leverage these heavily subsidized programs to help the talent, to continue to develop the talent pipeline, even in the midst of the COVID. So I believe all of us have been actively participating in all these programs, in great solidarity. So it was really good to see. So I would really urge, job seekers out there that they should also tap into these programs to see how they can pick up skills that are relevant for the financial industry.
Thank you, Susan. In fact, Susan has spelled out many of the programs that IBF is promoting to the financial services sector. In fact, Technology in Finance Immersion Program, in short, we call it TIFIP, and Professional Conversion Program are the 2 key programs that actually my team and I are working very closely with financial institutions to sell this program. And Susan, being an IBF council member, she also knows all this program really well. In fact, yesterday at the keynote opening by DMD Jacqueline Low of MAS, she shared that some 25 institutions already committed to reskill 5,000 employees, and 900 of them have completed training. And so we can't do this without the strong support of the financial sector institutions. We also need MAS, Workforce Singapore, and also our tripartite partners in order to help get all this on board. So while employers are forthcoming and respond to a professional conversion program, I think we also have some need to encourage individuals to respond to the reskilling so-called effort put in by employers. If the financial institution have a plan for you, respond to the training, and then get yourself reskilled for a new role. For the TIFIP program, last year we had a very good launch. 70 places were taken up. This year we are in the midst of finalizing the so-called the interview process, but to date more than 120 have already accepted the letter of acceptance. So I think it's a very encouraged move by the job seekers and those who want to go into the so-called deep tech areas. So maybe over to Deborah, you share how BlackRock is overcoming such challenges. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I'll also include some of the things that we're seeing in markets as well, because that would have an impact in terms of how it's affected the rest of the asset management industry, right? So in the midst through this pandemic, which I think even if you think about the various crises that Sam mentioned earlier, I mean, this is one crisis that has left no industry unaffected, right? Either positively or negatively, right? So I think this particular one really stands out, right? So what's happened is governments all over the world, have been forced to make, I would say, quite a lot of liquidity and monetary fiscal conditions easy, okay, so that the businesses can continue to function, right? In addition, governments have also had to make difficult choices between keeping the virus in check and reopening the economy, right? But what is the backdrop? The backdrop is that we've seen financial markets, particularly equity markets, rebound, very, very strongly, right? I mean, if you look at the indices, I mean, albeit, for instance, I mean, you see like the Nasdaq, reaching new highs. S&P as well, but like you look at the S&P, it's basically confined to a few stocks. But nevertheless, okay, the headline is that markets are strong. Okay, and so in a way, you can see that there's a disparity, between the real economy, okay, and what's happening in financial markets, right? So amidst all this, I mean, what are we seeing in the asset management space? Okay, so firstly, we've noticed that clients, whether they are countries, or individuals, like us. I mean, people are looking more and more for timely, contextualized advice, to help them really navigate these turbulent times and in a way, rebalance and construct their investments accordingly. So it's no longer a matter of, which is the hot fund that I buy. It's more about being able to put building blocks together, so that you can achieve some sort of resilience. Okay, so that when there are bad times, you can still withhold these uncertainties, right? I mean, the other thing I was going to mention is everyone's been talking about sustainability for a long time, right? It's only during this past year that all of a sudden, together with other drivers, sustainability actually has really been at the forefront. Okay, and so net, we've also seen that a lot of asset management companies, have really had to put this at the forefront, in terms of their agenda. And what has been pleasing for BlackRock is that we've seen that, through our studies, a lot of the ESG funds that we do monitor, have shown, that they've outperformed, during a period of crisis. So it's still early stages, okay, but we believe that this is going to be a long-term trend. And the last one, actually, people have talked about before, is technology and digital transformation. And the point that I'd like to add in answer to your question is, how have we positioned ourselves at BlackRock? I mean, we've been quite lucky because our founders, right at the beginning, decided to build a company around technology before it became fashionable. So in addition to being an investment manager and fiduciary, we're also a financial technology provider. Okay, and so what does that mean, right? It means that during the crisis, when people had to work from home, our clients and ourselves have to work from home, we were able to be to help them in terms of transition in BCP by providing this unified technology end-to-end platform, so that their employees can migrate quickly to work from home, as well as get a good view of their risk in a very timely way. Okay, so I mean, like the previous speakers in other sections, like the insurance section, for example, this dramatic use of technology across the board, transforming the whole asset management industry. Thank you, Chai-Sun.
Thank you, Deborah. So I think BlackRock is I think has a good plan to to actually have that deep tech area look into. In fact, deep tech is an area that is very much sought after. The deep tech technologies and specialists are very difficult to find, and in fact, hence we have the TIFIP program, and also IMDA has also rolled out many programs to help to build this pipeline of technologies for the industry. So I think BlackRock has done a good job and good planning to equip your own so-called business with the type of support you needed. So Sam, how about GIC? Can you share more about GIC?
Sure. And I see there's a question, and I might be able to kind of address it in response to your question. You know, when I think about digital transformation and the impact that the COVID-19 situation has had, it really hasn't changed what we do. It's in some ways changed how we do things. So I think a lot of people have in mind things like connectivity, remote working. So that's just providing the necessary infrastructure for people to do what they do in the office at home. And so that's really more about how than what. It's not as if the jobs had changed because we went from being in an office environment versus being in a home environment. So when I think about digital transformation, though, I think that's something that's been happening for a very long time. But I think oftentimes things can get lost in catchphrases. And when I think about digital transformation, that can mean a whole host of different things. We're a bit different at GIC than BlackRock and Schroders in that we don't market, we don't have sales. So we are purely an asset manager because of the nature of who we are. So when I think about digital transformation and what it means for the workforce, it's been this ongoing process over the last several years of changing the skills and how we work. And what does that mean? You know, someone asked about how important is it to be able to code. It's not the be all and end all, but the ability to be comfortable with data, to manipulate data, to have critical thinking processes and transform workflow that, you know, frankly, probably hasn't changed in 10 or 20 years. You know, you go into the depths of the asset management industry, there are things that have been done that are still being done with faxes. And I'm sure all of us, Deborah and Susan, we can go somewhere into our firm and there's a fax machine. And so how do we change that ecosystem? How do we have the right skills to say, you know what, this is a pretty inefficient system. We have a lot of data. We have APIs. We can pull that data in. We can transform that data and take something that took, let's say, 7 steps and do it in 1. And that's the kind of, I think, digital transformation that we're thinking about. And so what kind of skills do you need for that? It's an ability to code, an ability to be comfortable with data, an ability to be comfortable with large data sets and unstructured data. And then I think sometimes it's really lost when we think about hard skills is that ability to think critically. And again, that can be a catchphrase. So what does that mean? It's being able to see that you're at point A and that we need to get to point B, but how do we get there? How do we, you know, break out of the box and kind of break the status quo and really think about transforming how we do certain activities? But I think equally important, and I'll just end my response here, is it's great that employers are trying to find quote unquote digital skilled employees, but if the employer hasn't upgraded their infrastructure to take advantage of those skills, then it doesn't really work. So I'll give you just a hypothetical experiment. Everyone wants, you know, people that can script in Python. Great. But if all of your processes are done in Excel, that doesn't work. You're getting something super turbocharged and trying to fit into something that is maybe like a 2-cycle engine or something, right? So I think it's incumbent upon the employer as they look for highly skilled individuals to make sure that they have the infrastructure, the data culture, as well as the processes to take advantage of these employees that are coming with greater skills. Because I do see sometimes a mismatch where you get people on board they can code, they're quantitative, they think critically, but they aren't able to impact the organization because the organization itself didn't realize what it means to have those types of individuals on. So I think it's a two-way street where you want people to be upskilling, but you want the organization to improve as well.
Thank you, Sam. In fact, you have addressed one of the questions posted on the Q&A chat. So indeed, digital transformation, will lead to different types of changes, including new skills and knowledge to be acquired. So across the asset management industry, what will be some of the new skills besides, just now we talk about coding and also some programming that need to be picked up now, or will have a impact to prepare this person to be able to be more resilient as the asset management industry is overcoming the challenges. So may I invite Deborah to share some of the new skills that you think the individuals should pick up? Yeah.
So I would say some new, some not so new. Okay. In the sense that really, in the world these days, right? I mean, at some point in time, I mean, the world will, I wouldn't say it will normalize, okay, but there will be some sort of resolution one way or another, right? I mean, and what I think that we should continue to build on is really our ability to collaborate, to communicate, and actually, to be able to, to work seamlessly, across different personalities, across different cultures. Okay, and that's what I find, in the sense that, these days, we have to really over communicate. So that's probably, for me, really, really critical. The other thing is also being self-starters. So it's not easy, especially like, when you are a new employee and you're joining a company, and it's virtual, right? So how do you assimilate yourself, into that culture, without, having, let's say, warm bodies, of people in the same company around you, so again, right? I mean, it's people skills. The other thing in terms of, technical skills is really, what Sam was referring to earlier, the ability to have, some degree, of numeric skills. Okay, and I know it's really scary, especially if you're not a numeric, kind of person, but I think these days, I mean, in a way, be kinder to yourself, and really just take an interest and just listen first. I mean, it's not school, no one's forcing you to take an exam. So I think that, this sort of natural curiosity, we need to find back again. Okay, and really, when I look at, potential people, to come to BlackRock, really, the technical skills are, they're very much, a given. Okay, because by the time they come to me, they would have passed, certain tests. But really, I'm looking for that person, that is nimble, that is able to, to I would say, reach out, to others, and really to be curious. Okay, so that's why I said something's new, but a lot of it, is not new.
Thank you, Deborah. In fact, if you use a so-called
Soon you've disappeared.
oh, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
now you
Oh.
can.
yes.
Okay, I repeat. So I say what Deborah has shared. Some of us call them soft skills, So communication skill, team building skill, and all this. So this, in fact, these are not new, but it's very difficult if for a person to improve his communication skills or the team building skill. If you don't have the team spirit, then the whole project don't work. So I think these are important skills that individual, you can't learn so much in schools. Schools, like Deborah said, will give you the whatever qualification you aspire to achieve. But I think it's important for them to build out such skills, through experience and through so-called interaction with the human, the people, and within the company or within the industry. So what about Susan? Would you want to share how, whether you have a different suite of skills, and what are those common skills which Deborah has shared, is it also your same so-called perspective? Yeah.
Yes, indeed. I think, definitely, for the way forward, the technical, digital skills, data skills are very much in need. But having said that, the domain knowledge of, the functions that you are actually operating is also very important. So, what you really need to is to actually complement your domain knowledge with all this, be it data skills or digital skills. So, you cannot just have domain knowledge alone, right? In this new world, you need to understand data. You need to know how to interpret data. You need to be conversant with robotics or, digital tools. So maybe I try to be a little bit more specific in some of the functions in our industry and how some of these functions have evolved in terms of, you still having your domain knowledge, but now complemented with all the new, new ways of doing things. So for example, all right, in investment, right? Nowadays, a lot of firms have already built up their data insights units. So in terms of the investment decision process, it's not just based on your traditional, company financials or market information. Now, firms are active, or investors are, fund managers are actively, seeking additional insights from all these, big alternative data. So, you need to know, they need to know how to interpret it and how to use it to enhance their investment decision making. And in a function like marketing, it has definitely evolved beyond your traditional communications. Right. So now you're talking about using, digital platforms like search engine marketing, your search engine optimization, right, to actually reach out to a wider network of potential customers or clients, or even, to help generate business leads, as well as better focus, sales efforts. And even in a support function or infrastructure function like compliance, the traditional way to train the organization and its employees in terms of understanding regulations and internal policy requirements, nowadays, chatbots are being deployed to actually help, every employee take charge of their own understanding of regulations and policy requirements, right? And also, RPA processes, robotics, are also deployed to actually help compliance officers or even, managers detect different data sources to actually, help more timely identification of issues, and which then you can actually, work at remediating these issues in a more timely fashion. So I would say, your domain knowledge still needs to be there, but you need to complement with all these new skills.
Thank you, Susan. Sam, would you like to add on?
Sure. And just kind of going back to the two areas, I think broadly, there's been a conversation around hard skills and then obviously the soft skills. And when I think about hard skills, why is that important? If we think about the old way of doing business, it would be your data is locked in some sort of database. You want to do some analysis. You call your technologist or some centralized function. You ask for the data. Then you have someone that is maybe outside of your function that runs the analysis, and they deliver you a report. And you can imagine the number of steps and the number of individuals that that involves. One of the things that at GIC we've been doing, and in my team as well, specifically, is just open up that infrastructure. And so now you have an environment where people can be self-service. So they can go directly, acquire the data, manipulate the data, and incorporate that into a decision-making process. So now you've cut out all the middle steps. But to be able to do that, you need the ability to be comfortable. It doesn't mean you have to be a world-class coder, but you need a familiarity with how that works to be able to manipulate that data and then to interpret it. And you can imagine the efficiency, the speed, and just the improved decision-making. And that could be in an investment function. It could be in an operational function. As Susan alluded to, we have data scientists that sit in our audit, an internal audit, and they are doing continuous audits and teaching the machine to pick up anomalies. And so, whereas before audit may have been a 3-month process, you look at one specific business, we do continuous audit. And so the nature of work and how we think about these things changes. So that's really kind of the hard skills. And Deborah touched on some of the softer skills. why is communication important? You know, this is a conversation that I have with some of my team members. Is it's fantastic that you are an incredible thinker and you have some brilliant ideas, but if you can't communicate them to me, to the team, to stakeholders, they're essentially useless, right? Because they're trapped in someone's mind. And so I think this is where you don't have to be an orator. You don't have to be a specialist in rhetoric. You don't need to be comfortable publicly, you know, in public speaking. But the ability to articulate an idea clearly is incredibly important, especially as you gain seniority in any role, because that brilliant idea will only go insofar as, one, you can communicate it, but also two, to the extent that you can influence people, because there's a competition for ideas. And so I think that's why understanding human dynamics, empathy, communication, critical thinking. I think someone asked in the Q&A, you know, how do you learn to be a critical thinker? It's really, for me, critical thinking is challenging the inertia and status quo, right? The most horrible idea in my mind when I think about my team is, oh my God, do we have people that cannot be better thinkers than I am? Because then my entire business is capped by me. And to me, that's a very scary thought. You want people that will challenge you. You want people that are smarter than you. You want people that have different perspectives so that you can take the business to another level. Otherwise, it's entirely capped by who I am and what my experience is and how I've, you know, grown up in the industry. So that ability to question the status quo, to really be able to think about how to do things in a different way is incredibly important in allowing our business to grow and evolve.
Thank you, Sam. In fact, yesterday, there was a sharing by one of the panel. You said one of the industry representatives said, the young bring with them the digital skills and experience. The more mature worker will have that workflow experience. So the two can pair together, and then it will help to streamline a lot of processes and operations. So many of such skills, the communication skills, process, redesign, lateral thinking, data analytics, and all this, actually, they are also aligned with our manpower study commissioned by the MAS and IBF, which was done by Ernst & Young in 2019, and supported by various institutions, including the asset management industry. So the skills are also, you know, covered in the report, which is also available if our audience, if you can go to the concierge, look at the career advisory section, you can download the report. There you can see the different skills for asset management and other banking and insurance industry. Yeah, so while new skills and old skills continue to be important and jobs continue to evolve, so I think our companies are also finding ways to, you know, and also intervention to upskill the workers, their employees in this new skills area. So, you know, some of the panels share that, you know, the individual must have the mindset, always be prepared to acquire new skills and knowledge. Don't think that you are already confident to perform the role. You don't have to go for additional skills training. So I would like to hear from the panel, how are you upskilling your staff in new areas, or even the soft skills area which Deborah has shared? You know, any challenges we would like to share? Would Deborah or anyone to start first?
Yeah. So I mean, I spoke a bit, you know, about, you know, having people who are naturally curious, you know, and so, you know, at BlackRock, I mean, we don't, you know, force people, right? Apart from, let's say, like compliance training, right? You know, which you have to do for regulatory purposes. But it really, you know, learning is very much a part of our culture. So what we do is we have it available for our colleagues. We have something called BlackRock Academies, you know, which is a digital platform. You can basically do training when you're on the go. It's available through an app. We have a dedicated BlackRock Technology Academy, where we provide training for our staff, you know, to elevate their technology IQ, and to learn skills such as programming, data analytics, visualization, and all that. We also have a scheme called adaptive resourcing, you know, which we introduced, you know, during this COVID period, where we match employees with teams that are facing resource challenges in the short term. So it's not necessarily like, you have to transfer from one department to another, but basically, be able to work temporarily, on a project, or, some, a new function. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, which which really struck me when I came on board 2 years ago, is that employees are really encouraged to do side projects. Okay, and whether it was initially through like annual hackathons, or let's say, if I want to, launch a new project on, I don't know, I mean, sustainable, strategies in the retirement space. I mean, something esoteric like that, right? I mean, I just sent out an email to the office, and people decide, okay, hey, I want to put up my hand to do this project at the side of my desk. And these people don't necessarily have to be, for instance, in the investment management department. They could be in my Aladdin department, but they're interested, and they feel that by doing that, they will pick up new skills. So I think that really for companies, learning and upskilling is no longer a sideshow, right? It really has to be part and parcel, of your daily life, and what you do, as a normal course of work. And then I think that once you have this kind of mindset, really it just opens up, your mind, to different possibilities, of I wouldn't even say upskilling, but of broadening your whole repertoire, if for want of a better word.
Thank you, Deborah, for sharing. Sam, would you want to also share how GIC is embarking on this journey to upskill your staff?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think, again, I alluded to this in one of my earlier answers. This is really a two-way street, right? There's the employee's responsibility and the employer's responsibility. And from a GIC perspective, we do things that I'm sure a lot of the firms do, right? We have a specific training budget per person that anyone can use to learn skills, whether it's classes outside of GIC, whether it's coding, data analytics, whatever it might be. We want to make sure that there's resourcing for the colleague to really upskill. We internally have a division within our HR department called GIC School, which also internally puts on seminars, training sessions, and makes speakers available. Again, so that's a training opportunity. So that's really incumbent upon the employee to go out and find ways of upskilling. But equally important is, we talk about, the need to learn, to be agile. You also have to help people understand what they need to learn. And I think that's where the manager's responsibility is. And so one of the things that the departments do is look at all the roles and say, what will this role look like in 2 to 3 years' time? And it might be, it's exactly the same. And the skills that are relevant now are going to be relevant 2 to 3 years from now. But there's going to be a certain percentage of roles where, because of technology change, because of markets changing, because of automation, that those roles just will not be relevant. Those roles may not exist. And we see that throughout all industries. And so when we see something like that, that's the manager's responsibility to then examine those roles, make that determination, and then really have a conversation with the team member to say, okay, in X amount of time, we don't think this role exists, or it's going to be so different. The way you're doing it now is not going to be relevant. And so that can be a tough conversation, but it's really a conversation around how do we get you ready to do the role of the future, right? Or how do we change your skill set so that you can do a different role within the organization because that role is no longer going to exist. And so I think that's really the responsibility of the employer and the manager to really understand, how is my business changing and how do I get my team ready to adapt? Is it upskilling because the role is going to require different skills, or is it getting that person ready to do a different job because that job just won't exist? Just like we get rid of obsolete technology. I mean, I know all of us still have some faxes in the office, and I see one behind Susan. But I doubt many of us have modems in the office, and modems were pretty big when I was, starting out in the industry. So I think it's the same thing with our staff, which is, how do we get them ready so that they don't become obsolete? And how do we make sure that they get the skills to either do the job in a different way or do a different job?
Thank you, Sam. In fact, it's very heartening to know that our financial institutions, are always ready to engage individual for risk. Working with the asset management industry or any other industry in the financial services sector. You should appreciate the opportunity, because skills acquisition is always evolving, and you don't know what new skills to step up and then increase your learning activities. How about Schroeder's? Susan, would you able to share some of the actions or initiative you have wrote?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
And yes.
Yes, I think the biggest challenge, when you are trying to, tell people to think about doing things differently, right, and embrace, a new technology is really the fear, the mindset, right? So what we set out to do is to really, try to remove the myth of, fear of some of these technologies. So across the region that now I'm responsible for, we launch what we call a DG Fit at APAC program. And that is to actually encourage all our staff to, or to inculcate in our staff, a foundational level of knowledge about the digital tools that are available to all of us. Right, and there are a couple of components in this program. One is actually an innovation challenge, because we also want to encourage creative thinking. We encourage people to come together in groups to come up with new ideas to actually do things more efficiently. Right, so that's an innovation challenge, and we always tell people that to innovate, we must also give people the room to fail as well. So the organization is not going to ostracize you just because an idea that you've suggested cannot be implemented. So that must be kind of like a baseline. We communicate to them that try new things, come up with new ideas, but it is okay to fail. So that's the first thing that we tell them. And then the other thing that we do is also, we did a Sparker, what we call a Sparker Award, whereby we set KPIs for our people to achieve a minimum number of or hours of e-learning training in certain topical areas of digital or data. And then and one of the courses that we strongly encourage our people to go through is how to build a machine learning model for everyday life. So we literally get people online to build a machine learning model, something that to many people, who are not in data analytics and machine learning, is very abstract for them. But when they see how simple it can be done, and how easily it is to be applied, that helps to remove that abstract fear that they have. So that's how we actually help them, overcome the mindset. The other thing that we do is that with this work from home scenario, the culture of the firm still needs to be preserved. We talk about soft skills, we talk about teamwork that is required. So what we did was that we actually did what we call ad collective action program. And in fact, this is something that we drive across the world globally. We had one campaign that is at 5110 together. And that is because Schroders worldwide have 5,110 employees. And what we tell our people to do is that, do an activity, get out of your home, because all of us are, working from home, the wellness, we're concerned about the wellness factor, so we try to get people out of the home to exercise and do anything, just clock in, something to do with 5110. So, people became very creative, they, whether they run or they climb 5,110 steps, but not, all at one shot, but over a period of time. And then, they actually then logged it, in our own intranet. And every time when you log something on, we are able to challenge another colleague to do it. All right, and in so doing, in the whole campaign, we also, went out to raise money for every activity that we do, and worldwide, we actually in the whole process raised 4.1 million pounds to actually donate to charity. So it was a really very good getting together, globally.
Thank you, Susan. So there's one question in the Q&A check box. It reads, older worker who has no experience with will the organization be willing to send them for new skills for those workers who are looking for a change in career? So I think the three representatives here would have so-called older workers. So in the current context, we call them mature worker, people age 40 and above. So maybe you want to share how are you encouraging or giving opportunities for the so-called mature worker to undergo skill training if it has not been addressed in the previous example you shared. Anyone want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. I think as I alluded to in the beginning, our industry has such a variety of roles. It really depends on the specific role. There's going to be certain roles where the needed accumulated domain expertise is so high that the barriers to entry are very difficult depending on where one is in their career. As an example, if one wants to be a quantitative investor or a research analyst, there's going to be an expectation that someone that's coming in laterally has an accumulated amount of experience that makes him credible and is able to, him or her, credible and able to function in that role. But there's going to be other roles where there's going to be related skills that can be transferred. So again, I alluded to that we're a bit different than BlackRock and Schroders, but clearly there's going to be roles in sales organizations and in relationship management that are transferable from one industry to another. So I think it really depends on the type of role. And when I think about kind of mature workers, as you said, it's not really about the age, but it's really about capability, capacity, and scalability and the agility to learn, right? So if an employee has that energy to learn, to transform, to keep growing, I'm all for that person. However, if there's an expectation that because there's X years of experience, that certain privileges or certain things are going to be afforded them, I mean, that's different because we're all in a hyper competitive industry and we just need to get the best possible because we are all fiduciaries to our clients. And obviously for GIC, the client is really everyone on the screen and in the audience here. And so we need to make sure that we're doing the best possible for the reserves. And so it really depends, going back to the original answer, the type of role, the needed expertise that may be required. And then also, what are the lateral skills that can be relevant to the role that someone is looking to do? And in terms of training, that's something that, as hopefully I've made clear, that GIC is very much invested in ensuring that people have the right skills and the right experience to keep growing with the organization.
Thank you, Sam. Any other panel member who would like to add?
Yeah, sure. I guess this whole issue, about more mature workers really resonates with me, right? Because I guess I consider myself one of them. I mean, fortunately in BlackRock, I mean, we're a very inclusive culture, right? And I mean, even the founder, he's no spring chicken either, right, Larry Fink. But you know, and I think that sends a really good message, you know, for all of us, because it is a founder-led company, you know, and some of the founders, like I said, I mean, they're not like in their 20s anymore, right? But what is it that they do to inspire the rest of us? And to me, the number one thing is the sense of service. Okay, in the sense that, I mean, for them, it's no longer about making the next buck, right? You know, it is, what is it that you're going to do to make it better for your people, your clients, and the society that you serve, right? You know, and so, like, when I look at my own executive committee, we have people of all ages, you know, in that committee, you know, and I've deliberately included people who are very young, in their 20s, you know, as well as people, believe it or not, who are older than me, right? And what I do notice is that when you have diversity of views and thought, the quality of the output, you know, is much, much better. You know, and I think that, you know, if we show the office, I mean, all 400 of us, you know, from, you know, 24 different nationalities, you know, across the different age groups, that this is the way to run a business, okay, where we value differences, you know, and we value a wealth of experience, you know, that everyone is worthy of respect. It makes for a much better organization. Okay, I mean, because, you know, really this, you know, the world is changing. And in a way, I mean, you know, considering, and you know, as an older worker, you know, I feel that my differentiation is, number one, I need to know, you know, how to manage my energy levels so that I can harness, you know, the summation of my experience to deliver the best for my people, you know, and my clients. Okay, so you know what I say, just plod on and rejoice in your experience.
Thank you,
Okay.
Deborah.
Yeah, maybe for Schroders, we actually have a lot of employees that have been with us for a long time. All right, and whether it's on my management team or, you know, my team leads, or even, you know, at working level. And what we really value of them is first, you know, their experience, their institutional knowledge, the cultural fit. So it is actually, these are very important foundation to actually take us into the next stage of you know, a growth where we want to go to get into. And you know, I agree with Deborah that as an organization, you know, all of us are actually, you know, or we believe strongly in diversity and inclusion. All right, so you know, there is of course new joiners that come in, you know, to complement the experience, bringing in new knowledge to complement the experience that the older employees have. But I think, you know, as long as the mindset is about continuous learning and learning from each other, I don't think the older workers have anything to fear. In fact, I think, you know, they should leverage their strengths of being, you know, old, experienced, and with the institutional knowledge, but be very open to learn from others as well.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you,
Yeah,
panel.
maybe I'll just add one thing to what Susan
Yes, Sam.
said. I think that willingness to change is agnostic to age, right? And that unwillingness to change is also agnostic to age. You see it in 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40, 50. I mean, it's really that agility, the continuous learning that you want. And, you know, how that correlates with age, I found is there's not a 100% correlation, right? It's very diverse. And so to emphasize, I think what the whole panel is saying is what's important is that agility, that learning agility, and that willingness to change, not what, you know, what the age of the person is.
Thank you, Sam. In fact, I think we are already past 12, quarter past 12. So I think maybe just to round out the session, we'd like to invite panel member to you know, share with the audience one or two key takeaway or one or two, you know, word of encouragement you want the audience to to bring back. So maybe Sam, you want to start first, since I started with the ladies first. Yeah.
Thank you. Look, I think one of the themes that I've been really trying to hit on is to embrace change. Change is scary. Change can be frightening, but change is also opportunity. And, you know, the industry is changing and transforming, which also creates opportunity for employment. I think if you go into the hiring zone, GIC has advertised a bunch of roles that we continue to hire for. So, you know, there is optimism in the industry. We know we need, you know, new skills. We need you know, new ways of thinking, and so we are looking to bring people on. But it really involves in this kind of environment, and frankly, markets are always changing. So embracing that change and really being part of it and seeing it as an opportunity, I think is critical to success.
Thank you. How about Deborah?
Sure. I mean, completely agree with Sam in terms of change. But what I do realize is that, you know, firstly, you know, you're not alone, right? I mean, we're not all alone in this. Okay. So it's one of those things that everybody is going through this together, right? But, you know, instead of talking about the new normal, okay, let's try and make it better for each other and for ourselves. But in order to do that, okay, you need to have energy. Okay, so I don't know about you guys, okay, but in terms of the emotional energy I now spend, whether it's my work, you know, checking up on colleagues, especially those who are by themselves in Singapore, you know, tending to my parents, especially in this lockdown, you know, we had to, you know, take turns to go and buy groceries for them, you know, and inevitably, if you've got young kids at home, you know, it's even worse, right? You know, so with all these pressures, you know, what does that mean? It means that I think in order for us to have the energy to take that step, okay, to even like embrace change, okay, you got to recognize that your spirit as well as your physical self, you know, needs tending to. And so what I tell people is that, okay, I mean, we know we have to do this, right? And we know we have to pass this, and we know we have to continually reshape ourselves. But all of that takes energy, okay? And without energy, you know, we're not going to be able to do that. So start with yourself.
Thank you. Susan?
Okay, so from me, I would want to say that, you know, I agree with Deborah, you know, we are in this all, we're in this together. You know, learning new skills is a continuous journey. Today, you know, this skill is new to us, but tomorrow, you know, there will be the next new skill. So learning is not, you know, a static. It has to be a continuous process, and it is not, you know, at just, you know, a certain level, a certain function. Is happening at all levels. So even leaders like myself, you know, needs to continuously learn and relearn. So, you know, I want to say, you know, keep learning and don't stay static.
Thank you, Susan. In fact, if I may borrow some words of wisdom from Patrick of NTUC, he delivered the opening address this morning. So I think he also summed up something like have a lifelong learning mindset, reskill, stay relevant, positive, and be resilient. So I think if our, every one of us, you know, whether you're the employers, you're the employees, I think we always need to aspire to learn, acquire new skills and knowledge to make ourselves relevant. So thank you very much, Susan, Deborah, and Sam. I would like to express our deep appreciation for your sharing. I'm sure the audience has benefited from the various perspectives you have shared. So for the audience, you can still visit our skills zone and career advisory zone. They are still open till this afternoon. And for those of you that you think your questions are not answered or you want to know more, you can write to IBF. Thank you, everyone. Thank you and stay safe.